one of the things is do it scared. One of our mottos is like, do it scared. And it's about pushing ourselves and actually, yes, we can do hard jumps, and yes, we can do scary, roof gaps, and we want to, and that's okay.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Takeoff. I'm your host, Max Henry, and on today's episode, we have Georgia Donati Clarke, who is a parkour athlete and coach out of London and soon to be Brighton, England. And I got to meet Georgia many, many years ago at a Parkour Generations event in London. She really struck me as somebody who was incredibly thoughtful in her approach, and also somebody who just had this great joyous, kind of like bubbly energy. She was really good at connecting with people, going up, introducing herself. And since then, she's really become a core part of the community, and particularly the women's community in the UK. She's helped organize events with FemGaps. She has coached in London, in Copenhagen with the CPG Her event, Women's International Parkour Weekend. And recently she released an online program called the Female Parkour Program. With all this stuff happening and with her regularly putting out awesome coaching content on her Instagram, Strength with G, I really wanted to have her on to talk about her history, because she actually started parkour in Italy and got to train with Laurent Piemontesi, one of the Yamakasi, some of his sort of initial students in the Italian community, and then transitioned to training with some of the more newer generation practitioners in London and Brighton. And now she's sort of bridging that gap and finding ways to take a lot of the core values that we've talked about a bunch on this podcast that people have highlighted, that came from the Yamakasi and the spirit of their training, and how to integrate that with some of the skill development and progression and more the sports science end of where parkour is going, and finding that bridge. So phenomenal episode. If you're a coach or if you're a female parkour practitioner, definitely recommend listening to this one. Even if you're not, as always, give it a listen. I think Georgia's got a ton that everybody could learn from, and her story is awesome. Without further ado, let's get into it. Georgia Donati Clarke, welcome to the Takeoff.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. Yes, I really appreciate it. It's very exciting to have you on. I have been seeing you make some phenomenal content recently on the gram, and getting to see you coach and attend all these different events. And then I just saw you recently release the Female Parkour Program and talking more about that. And I wanted to have you on to chat about your experience as a coach. I think I met you at Rendezvous like a decade ago. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, I think so. Definitely. I feel like I've met you twice. Once at Oslo Movement Gathering more recently. Yeah. And I think your wife was there too. Yeah, I think you were both there. And then, Rendezvous inside the chain store like years ago.
Yeah, there's some good sessions with like Flynn and Haroon and some of those folks. Well, before we dig into where you're at now, you told me a very interesting story that I did not know about having some early parkour experiences with Laurent Piemontesi from Yamakasi. So how did you actually get into parkour?
Yeah. So I started in Italy. So I'm born in London, but my mum's Italian, my dad's English. So at 8 years old, I moved to Florence in Tuscany, Italy, and lived there till I was 18 with my mum and my two siblings. And around 16, I was in a photography group, like we were all sort of learning photography, and this guy who was kind of leading the group, it was quite an informal group, but he'd made a video project for sort of a council-run competition. And his video was a guy doing parkour, a friend of his doing parkour to this like almost classical music. I think it was classical. It was very dance-esque and beautiful. It was really beautiful. And I watched it, and he wanted feedback, like from a cinematography perspective. And I said it was beautiful, and that it made you want to try parkour. And he said, I don't think he did this on purpose or he was planning this, but he was like, well, you should try it. Like, there's a class starting on Tuesday, like a set course starting on Tuesday. And at the time, I was kind of in a low place, and I'd been through a lot, and I wasn't feeling great in my body. I wasn't feeling great mentally, and I was like, why not? I was doing a bit of Muay Thai at the time, but I wasn't sporty by any means. And I had been enjoying the boxing, but again, was kind of losing the love for it. So I thought, why not go? And I went, and I loved it. And it was run by two guys called Robin and Antonio. Antonio still trains. He's an absolute machine, Antonio Galizzo. And it was their first experience as coaching, but they had been coached by a group in Florence, which are now called ADD Firenze, like Florence, ADD Florence.
Yep.
So they're part of the kind of Art du Déplacement umbrella
Family tree.
family. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They're like part of it now, and those people were Paolo and at the time a guy called Giulio who doesn't train anymore. And they nurtured me. Like I ended up part of that family in Florence, and they helped me start parkour. There was lots of old school conditioning. You know, like a normal session would end with 50 push-ups, but like then other sessions would be, you know, just 2 hours of conditioning and lots
I was
of
going to ask if
parkour.
your first parkour training session was doing 1,000 squats with Laurent.
Luckily
because
not.
that
Luckily not. But yeah.
You showed up on a Tuesday and not a Sunday. That was a good decision. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in Florence, which is the centre of Italy, and Laurent is in Milan, which is the north. But the way Paolo and Giulio, these people I started with, had got into parkour was, or very early on at least, they discovered that Laurent was in Milan. So they were constantly doing trips up and down and learning from him and then bringing those learnings kind of to us. So that's how it started. Heavily influenced by Laurent Pimotizzi, but we also then would go visit him or he would come to visit us. And sometimes with other people, like I remember Stanny visited the guy that was mentioned on your podcast in the last episode, who's from Toulouse, French guy, Stanny. Jan visited a few times. Chow visited once. I'm trying to think if anyone else. I went to visit Malik Diouf in Paris.
Okay.
So he didn't come, but I went to visit him. And he was lovely. I mean, they were all lovely. I mean, Jan is absolute chaos. Absolute chaos.
You can't understand him, but he's phenomenal. You just get the vibe. He's just like a vibe as a person, like a bundle of energy and joy. And it made me feel better because I got to coach with him and train with him at American Rendezvous.
Oh, cool.
I had no idea what he was saying the entire time in English. And I'm like, oh, that's totally fine. My French is terrible. I couldn't understand him in French either. And then I was talking to other French speakers and they're like, no, we barely understand him in French either. That's just kind of his energy. But it was like, he communicates so well with his body and his facial expressions. And like, his energy is intoxicating.
And the reason this came up is because I'm currently reading, so Laurent has written a book, Esprit Yamakasi, which is only in French and Italian, but apparently there's an English one coming out. So it's been translated.
Thanks, Laurent.
I think it's been translated. And in the book, actually, he mentions Jan as Jan being the energy, like as in, he was the guy that kind of a lot of the reason why a lot of them continued. He was the guy rallying people up, kind of like the dad of the family. And I think whatever you think about Art du Déplacement and the training they do, to this day, those guys that started, the ones that still have the love and passion for the sport, are so inspiring and positive people to be around. Like if you get the chance to train with them, they're all like, you will leave so energized and so in love with the sport. In a way that I think in some ways it's a shame that some of the younger generation don't experience. And I don't mean you need to go to every move, which is their sort of annual summer event, because it's brutal. I've done that as well once. I've been to every move once, and it's 7 days of them sharing their type of their way of training, which is a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of technical training as well, but a lot of conditioning. But even just if you have a chance to visit them, you know, to go to Paris and actually reach out to them, or Milan, their arms are always open to people. Like they always want to connect with the people in the community. So, I have a lot of stories, but I don't know where to start with that.
I also just want to highlight what you said there. It's insane that the founders of our sport are just out there. Like you can go to Milan, like you said, and Laurent's not shy about being like, every Sunday I'm doing this. Maybe like he's not going to hit a gym like bro split session. If you're like, I don't want to do 1,000 squats with you, Laurent, how about you come do like a overhead press and Romanian deadlift session with me? Like he's going to do his own thing, but you can hop in on training with him. William, super open. Chow. There is like a language barrier to a certain extent if you aren't a native French speaker or Italian speaker. But I mean, I've met many of them and like they're super game to just be involved however, and that's insane. I mean, there's not a lot of sports out there where you can literally go and train with the people who
Yeah.
created the framework for how, and the sport's grown, like you said, it's a different style of training. But we just had Adam McClellan on last week, and we talked about sort of the multiple branches of like there's the sort of like sports performance, and skill acquisition, or like skill refinement branch that parkour has gone down. And I think that's phenomenal. It's really attractive to a lot of people. I think it makes it feel more accessible for kids to get into it in the beginning stages. But then I think that the meat and like sinew of the practice is still a lot of what the ADD, art du déplacement community has to offer, which is the culture of effort and personal challenge, and the community vibe of like you're sweating and in pain with a bunch of other people who are trying really, really, really hard together. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think Laurent would disagree with me, but well, not I think, but in his book he talks a lot about how what he does isn't parkour. So he's quite set in that, and it's quite interesting to read. I think it's a really good book to come out, and I think it would be really good for people to read it. I was quite surprised of how, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but of how like he doesn't think what he's doing is what everyone else is doing. But actually, when I think back, like to why I moved slightly away from art du déplacement, is I think because I felt like there were more effective ways to train, but also I wanted to have fun. For me, it was a lot about having fun, and I do have fun. Like I was saying to someone this morning, the two things I want from my parkour is to keep getting better and to have fun. And if those two things are happening, then I'm happy. Like I'm not interested in comparing to anyone else or going down a specific route. Like it's my path, it's my route, and as long as I'm always getting better and having fun, then I'm happy, and I'll keep doing it forever. But I think when I think back to training with him and some of those challenges you talk about, like really hard challenges together or training all day together, he's also just having fun. All those people that I trained with in the beginning, ultimately they're also doing it because it's fun. And they're also, building communities and building, the family you choose. And my memories of those early days are not too dissimilar to the relationships I have now with Super XXL and the community in London. So I've always been of this opinion that we're all doing the same thing. And I really care about, in any way that I can, being some sort of bridge. Because I came from such an extreme... So my experience was this extreme, like, ADD, and it was really ADD, to my second experience of parkour was Stora. So it was, like, so different as I moved to Brighton for uni.
Those are the polar opposites in a lot of ways,
opposites. And I think that's why maybe I have this idea of a bridge in my head, like, since the beginning, like, those early days. I just feel like there's so much value to be had with crossing those. And, yeah, I've always just had great conversations with everyone from really extreme ends of the sport or the movement practice, because, again, art du déplacement wouldn't call it a sport. So there's so many differences, but I just don't like the idea of all being like separated. But Laurent talks a lot about in the book, I think because the word comes from David Bell, like the word parkour comes from David Bell. Obviously he feels very hurt from that and from that division. And I think they've like completely cut ties. And I think he sort of talks about, it's quite hard to read. Laurent, just like you were saying about Jan, also Laurent, you can absolutely understand him, but it is very chaotic the way he speaks and the way he writes. But he talks a lot about how individualistic parkour is, or David Bell's parkour is, and how instead their culture of effort and their want to get better and better themselves is to help other people. So that's one of the differentiations.
Yeah, that's a really powerful differentiator, and I think that it can kind of take us into the next thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is your coaching history and where you're at now with coaching. I think we're seeing more folks. I mentioned Callan Lavington in a recent post, kind of look at the individualistic aspect of parkour that Laurent identified in David's philosophy and approach to training, and say like, hey, we're sort of seeing where this hits a ceiling, right? It's kind of like achieved its pinnacle in the Instagram moment of the Doms and the Joes, like people who are lovely people and have millions of followers, but it gets the sport out there, and then it kind of fizzles away without a community and deeper connection for people to fall into. So how did you fall into coaching? What is your approach to coaching like, and how do you try to integrate what people maybe are seeking sometimes with the skill pursuit, the individualism of a David Bell-esque parkour approach with what you learned from your early years?
Yes, because also to make it clear, I love seeing the pinnacle of parkour as well. So like, and I'm actually now, as you're talking, and I'm like thinking about which parts of my coaching or my coaching experience to talk about, it's like I'm actually really happy that I'm in a position where with FemGaps we run jams and cool events that bring women together, and we have people like Camilla Stefanu come and do an amazing performance for us at our jam, where we did a 2-hour comp and set 57, I forget the numbers now, I think 57 challenges, including some that we were like, oh, like,
So
will someone
sick,
do
yeah.
them? And then she did like 54 of them in 2 hours, in 2 hours, in 2 hours. Like, so just seeing her was like, and many others, but it's so wonderful to be able to bring like her into the same room. It's not, you know, an enclosed room, but like in the same space as
The same underpass.
yeah, the same underpass as true, as complete beginners and moms, and you know, people who've been following her online, and that's so cool, and I'm so for that. And you know, I hope to be at like Oslo Movement Gathering again, and events like that are about the sort of pinnacle of our sport. And on the other side, have a, you know, random Thursday night in London with 6 other women who are, some have been training for a few years, some are new to it, and I had 2 last week who are over 60, who love parkour, who are so up for trying everything, and they started age 60, and
Amazing.
that's so cool. And I'm so happy that I can exist in both those spaces and be a part of both those their experiences. And then now, which is fairly unique, like I haven't seen much of it, but now doing online coaching and so I was a personal trainer for, I still am, I guess, but I've been a personal trainer for 7 to 8 years now. I did my hours in a gym doing one-to-one sessions. My first job as a PT was sort of working from 6:30 in the morning to 2 p.m. in a gym in Soho in central London, and just, you know, 1 in, 1 out. You'd have a little break here and there, but otherwise just like learning to teach people how to squat, push up, pull up, deadlift, all that stuff. There was a physio there, so people would go for physio as well, and she would refer patients to us, and so I learned a lot. I still work with her actually to this day. We refer each other clients all the time, or patients, and vice versa, and that's been really helpful. But then gradually was like, how do I make this more parkour? Obviously I love parkour, so actually my first experience of coaching parkour, I did my level 1, I did my hours. I shadowed people like Alex Pownell and stuff like, and people like that.
No, level 1 for adapt, the adapt certification, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The first sort of assistant parkour coach certification. And then from then I'm thinking of the phrase, but I like took a plunge, just like went for it and applied for a assistant coaching job in Bangkok, Thailand, which was Julien Vigreau's gym, which is Julien Vigreau's gym. So he has 2 gyms called Movement Playground. I think they're called Movement Playground.
I didn't know that's Julien Vigreau. That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't really know either until
that's
I applied.
Stefan Vigreau's younger brother, for the listener who is not as much of a nerd as myself or is not immersed in the ADD community.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was a PT, and this was 2019, and someone sent it to me on Facebook. They were like, hey, you might be interested in this. And it was like looking for adapt level 1 coaches, da da da. And I just thought, why not? I think I like hard resets, and I was like, it's hard to leave this PT job. Like, it was a good job, and I liked the people I was working with. I wanted to do more parkour, and I was trying to do both, and I was really like getting burnt out doing some PK Gen coaching hours in the evenings, and then doing this like 6:30 a.m. job. And so I was like, hard reset, we're going to Thailand. And I did, and I went out there, and I met Julien. He was lovely, and he was running it with a lot of shareholders. There was a lot of meetings, and like he clearly had like investors in the gym, which is a good thing. And these 2 beautiful gyms actually, but within 2 weeks of me being there, COVID happened and everything got shut down. So then I was in Bangkok and I had to decide, like, he called me up and he was like, look, I'm really sorry. We are closing the gym and I can't tell you to stay or to leave. You have to decide that for yourself. I don't know when we'll be able to reopen. And so in the end, I decided to book a flight home because also in Thailand, they didn't speak that great English. So I was like, if I get sick, I don't even know if they can explain to me what's going on. So I decided to fly home and I did. And it was fine. Like, I don't know. Either way, I probably would have been fine out there, but it's probably good to be home near family when we didn't really know what this was.
And you don't know when you can travel again. At that
Yeah.
time, in the early days of COVID, you're like, people can't fly. Who knows if I'm in
Yeah.
Thailand, how long I'm going to be here for?
It probably would have been, like a year or something. And I don't regret it though. At the same time, I don't regret going because yeah, I got to see these two gyms. I knew I could do that experience again if I wanted to. In the end, I ended up staying in the UK. Well, COVID was like 2.5 years, really, basically. So I ended up getting a job back in a conventional gym for a bit, and then eventually moving on to Parkour Generations as their operations manager. But eventually, one thing that I was kind of seeing was this online coaching that personal trainers were doing. So I started doing it as a personal trainer, like coaching people on the side, online, helping people get things like ring muscle ups or get stronger, get pull-ups. But the more I did it, the more I was like, oh, but I kind of attract parkour people, and can I marry these two things? Which then led me to the female parkour program.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated to hear. I assumed that you had a personal trainer background, but I wasn't sure. And we mentioned this a little bit off air as we are kind of just chatting, but I this past weekend just spent a weekend in Austin, Texas at a big strength and conditioning conference. Unsurprisingly, was the only parkour athlete slash coach that was there, but it was really fascinating to get to talk to experts because S&C here in America is humongous. It's incredibly well funded. Not that the coaches necessarily make a ton, but the industry is massive. Especially when you compare it to something like parkour. The money that like high schools and colleges here in the US put into their football program is absurd, probably way too much. It would be nice if we had like better education and healthcare, but that's another topic for a different podcast. And it was really cool and gratifying to see how many of them were familiar with parkour, but they were like, I've never met a parkour athlete, or just like, oh, I've always been interested in how some of these movements could benefit like a traditional sports athlete, but nobody seems to be making that type of content. And seeing you do it recently as well, Fat with their Fat Performance page is a little bit more on the sports performance side as opposed to kind of the Gen Pop, I feel like, side of things, general population.
Yeah.
But super cool. What did you, when you were going into putting together the female parkour program, what did you feel like the low-hanging fruits were for parkour athletes? I guess, first of all, why did you decide to specifically make a female parkour program? And then what did you feel like the low-hanging fruits were for the people that you wanted to work with?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say this. I never expected to train only women. Like, that was just never my experience. And as a PT on the gym floor, yes, I attracted more women, but I've always had male clients as well. And it's been absolutely fine. Like, great, even, it's interesting to have different people. And even just maybe 2 years ago, I would say to people, I coach people, not women or men. I coach people. And I really
You have to be able to flex on a middle-aged dude with your ring muscle up from time to time. It's the best part.
And so what I'm realizing now is because I came into parkour regardless of it being typically a male sport, I'm the kind of person, and all the women that train parkour are the kind of people who will do it anyway. So we didn't need a female-only space. We didn't need female-only jams. When they would happen, like Shirley used to run a women's class on a Thursday night, of course I would go to it. Plus it was Shirley. Like, of course I would go to it, and I want to learn from them. It's not that I was against it, but I didn't need it to start. And then I taught a few rounds. I think I taught 3 rounds of a women's beginner parkour course at Parkour Generations about 3 years ago now when I was working there. And we'd stand in a circle on the first day and say our name. And one of the questions I'd ask them is like, what made you pick this course? Or something like that. I think it was a question like that. What made you pick this course? Because I remember standing there on one of the rounds and every single one in different words. Like, I don't know if they realized that they were saying the same thing, but they all basically said, I've always wanted to try parkour. I've always wanted to do it, but I didn't know where to start. And then I saw this course, and it was a women's course, and it was a beginner course, and I knew like I had to sign up. And there was sort of 12 or 14 women in the room, and they all basically said that, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize this was so important. And that stayed with me. And so the same with online. I think at some point I was starting to coach online, and I suddenly had a realization that no one in London at the time was running a women's class. So again, this is in-person work, but no one was running a women's class of all the gyms and all the coaching companies. And I was like, that's crazy. And I'm online starting to sort of play around with like, I think I started with like the parkour strength coach and like sort of adding the word parkour. And I was a bit nervous to do it, mainly because I still need to make a living. And I was worried that I was niching too much.
Yeah.
So I'd stayed as this online coach, very like strength focused, fat loss focused. And then I was just like starting to pull parkour in because people were saying to me, like other coaches, they were like, but Georgia, your thing is parkour. Like you should be talking about that. And they were other coaches. They weren't my clients, but I was like, okay, like I guess. And I was, there's that thing of when you're, especially when you're working online, but actually even on the gym floor, one of the key things you have to learn to do is like figure out what makes you different. Like why pick you? Client walks into the gym and they want, like, what is it that client says that someone's going to go, oh, Georgia's the coach for you? And that if someone can do that, if someone can walk into a gym and say, like, my goal is to learn parkour, and someone goes, right, you have to work with Georgia, that's huge for your business. That's, like, great, because then people are going to be referring people to you, and you're known for that one thing. And so I was starting to add the word parkour, and so then I started running these workshops, and again, these women were just like so grateful that I'd started women's workshops and parkour workshops outdoors. And so I started to think, okay, maybe I know I'm not necessarily the best person to teach everyone parkour. Like for a lot of guys, they need fat performance, for example, or they need people who are, have a different skill set in terms of parkour than me. I'm not the right person to teach everyone. But I started to realize that I'm the right person for these women. And so then I started to lean into that more on the online. And I guess then the female parkour program came about as like a way to package it up and make it really clear, like, I'm here to help you with this, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so then I started to jot down notes and draw it out and think about how I wanted to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I think your point about the survivorship bias of the women who are successful in the sport is really well taken. I think this kind of conversation is not necessarily become a dead horse yet, but it's on its way. The conversation of like, should women only parkour spaces exist? Because so many people have had your story, which is, I didn't need it, but when I went to one, I realized how many people did. And I realized that for every woman who either didn't experience that as a barrier to entry or made it through that, the sort of male dominant vibe of parkour, or the perceived male dominant vibe of parkour as a barrier to entry, there are 10 women who didn't show up because they were just too intimidated by the fact that I don't want to be the only woman here, or I think I'm going to be too out of shape if it's a bunch of 19-year-old athletic men. And it's good to acknowledge that survivorship bias. And I think that also exists, like, fat performance is really phenomenal. I think that what Arun has been doing, there's a very underdeveloped S&C focus in parkour. Anyone who's listening to this that follows me on Instagram will see that, I've been dealing with a couple injuries, and I decided this is a great time for me to communicate more of a lot of the things that I have told people in person for the last 10 years, where I have done strength and conditioning programming for people casually, like not as a personal trainer, but as part of my parkour practice. And I've been heavily researching and doing S&C for myself for 15 years. And it's very cool to see that space open up. But like you said, different people are going to want different things. And so somebody might want that, like, I'm hyper focused on getting the biggest cat 180 that I can, and I want Orlando to do this incredibly detailed breakdown of my shin angle and what exercises I need to be doing to develop more concentric power from a high angle knee flexion position off of the wall, and how my pull is affected. Other people are going to want somebody who's like, hey, here's a 30-minute guided parkour class or supplementary workout that you can do that will help you be in shape for the one class a week that you go to at your local facility.
Yeah.
And that is just such an underexplored space, particularly in women's parkour. So I also wanted to say, though, that what you said about not necessarily being the right person for everybody, I appreciate that, because you do have to niche down. I will say, though, that a lot of men who are maybe afraid of working with women or don't know, there are a lot of men, I think, who have internalized this idea that, like, I can't work with somebody who is weaker or less dynamic or less powerful than me. First of all, there's a lot of insanely strong women who are way stronger and more dynamic and powerful than me. I met a bunch of them this weekend. They're wild, like women with 10-foot broad jump, like toe to heel. It's insane. They are out there. But also, you don't need to be the best athlete to be the best coach, and often the best coaches are not the best athletes. So, well, I did want to just point that out, because I think a lot of people would hear you say that. And there is an internalization that, like, if I'm an elite athlete, I should work with an elite athlete. That is not true in any other sport. So I don't think it's true in parkour either.
That's true. That is true. I think also, if you're working with a coach and you're progressing and you're feeling good, then great, they're the right coach for you. If you're working with a coach who's like, you know, an amazing athlete or an amazing coach in principle, but it's not feeling good and you're not feeling good, then it's okay to quit and change coach. Because I think it's really important to find someone that gets you. I think, 100%. Like you say, it's actually not whether they have a bigger jump than you or not. It's do they get you, and do they have the knowledge to progress, to help you progress. But a coach is that person that sits on the outside and can see what you really need. And even as an athlete, like you and I, we both hugely benefit from having a coach, because a coach can see stuff that you can't see, and they can see from the outside. So
yes,
yeah.
I've been on other people's strength programming for 10 years. Because I can program for myself, but it's like the temptation to, when you program for yourself, cherry pick, or you know too much about how you feel and what you want to do. And it's nice to get like some of my favorite people, Petter, Smash Training from Serbia. I worked with him for a year. One of my best friends, Andres Luzardo, who's doing some online programming again here in Denver. Like Joe Rizzo, Tom Taylor. There's phenomenal coaches, and it helps so much to have somebody else just be there.
And to big myself up on the other side is like, I think what you learn is I've been in now the fitness space for 8 years and the coaching space, and what I'm realizing is like, it's okay to not be the best at everything. And I'm starting to realize what I'm really good at. And I think I'm really good at one-to-one coaching, like working with someone one-to-one. My clients see amazing results, and it's so rewarding, both in improving their parkour, losing weight, getting stronger. Megan was my client for a year. She's now one of my best friends, but she was my client for, I think, 1 year we worked together. And yeah, it's insane. But she lost 20 kilos, got a bar muscle up, like became a personal trainer herself. Like, she had this amazing transformation journey. And also that I think I'm really good at working with people online. Like, I really think it suits me, but I'm also good at it. And that's great, because obviously it's what I'm doing. And whereas maybe, like, I still teach classes, and they are good, but I think actually my strength is more online. Right? Like, I think I'm really good online, and I'm good in person, but I'm really good online. And I think, and that's why I continue to lean into it. And I can only get better at it. In 5 years' time, I'll have another 5 years experience of coaching online. But I love it as well. I enjoy it, and so obviously I'm passionate about it, and I'm figuring out like the best systems, the best way of coaching. And one of the most important things about online coaching is making it personal. So like, I have monthly calls with my clients, and those calls, they're only half an hour, which is actually quite short, but when I'm there, I'm with them, and it's about them and their journey. And I come prepared. Like, they fill out a form beforehand, I go through that form, I make notes, and then when we're on the call, I lead the call. But like, by the end of the call, they should leave being like really excited about training or nutrition or whatever we're talking about, but mostly training. It's like, I spoke to someone this morning, and her goals hadn't changed. She had exactly the same goals as last month, but she left the call like excited to go and work on them again. And that's a good coach, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So I'm happy you brought up Megan's transformation, and I want to talk a little bit about the podcast that you two have as well, because it's been really phenomenal. But so I'd mentioned low hanging fruits, and I did want to just
Hmm.
touch back on that for anybody who is interested in either working with you and they just want kind of a vision of where you like to start. So Megan's transformation, for instance, which you just said, what were some of those low hanging fruits that she had or that you see being pretty common among
Hmm.
women who want to improve their parkour performance but don't know where to get started?
Hmm. Yeah, structure and accountability. Like, a lot of them, especially someone like Megan. I mean, I guess she was quite young. Megan was like just turned 18 when she started working with me, but and so actually even like a woman who signed up last week who's maybe in her late 20s, it's the same, but like structure. Like maybe they know what to do, but it can be so easy to get distracted. A lot of women talk quite openly. I think guys do as well, but a lot of women talk quite openly about ADHD and like, but also just that we're bombarded with information, and so it's just having like structure. And one of the key things inside the female parkour program is I try not to overwhelm them. So like
Mm-hmm.
even when we started, they were like, "Are we going to talk about this?" And I was like, "Yes, like we can talk about all these things like hormones and nutrition and weight loss and the menopause and like so many things came up. And obviously parkour, they have questions about parkour. So we can talk about all these things, but I'm not going to create resources on all these things immediately because I don't want to bombard you with like 10 different resources to read that then you never read and you just feel like you never really use the program." So
Absolutely.
managing
Absolutely.
overwhelm was really important to me. I kept reinforcing in the group, like, if you fall behind on things, like, don't worry, you can go at your own pace. They're there, they're staying there. Like, um, but yeah, structure and accountability. So giving them, when they start the program, they have like specific workouts A and workout B. They have a mobility workout. And then every month we have one parkour challenge, which varies hugely. And I want it to be like all the broad different things that parkour can be.
Can you
But
give
in
me
the,
a couple examples of
yeah, yeah.
what those look like?
So in one of the early months, we worked on flow. So I gave them a few constraints of like how many steps they could use, quite simple things, but like how many steps they could
Yeah.
use, how many they needed to have at least 4 different movements in there, and they had to post at least one of them in the group chat every week. I'm never gonna like call someone out for not posting in the group chat, but it's encouraged. And they that was one that went down really well, and it was so cool because it was like the second month we'd done it, and we had a lady in Hawaii, one in India, one in Australia, a few in the UK, one in Croatia, one in Germany. So like it was really cool to see like also
Wow.
the different spots. Like the
Yeah.
Indian spots were really cool to see. Hawaii as well. I was
They've
like, I
got
don't know.
some spots. India and the women's community in India has grown massively. There's
Mm,
some really phenomenal female athletes and coaches
yeah.
in I don't know if it's pronounced Pune or Pune, but
Don't
there's
know.
like
Yeah.
a in northern India. Yeah, that community
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
awesome.
That's good to hear. That's where Tan has just moved back. So Tan is one part of
Okay.
FemGaps, and she's just moved back to Pune. So yeah, I'm glad she's gonna have a community there. Um, Flow was one. This month we're working on doing one scary thing every week, and I made it very clear that it's not. It doesn't have to be like risky. It's not about going out and doing something you're not ready for. It's about could be walking on a railing or walking on a high wall. It could be looking at a jump that you're really scared of and maybe doing it or maybe not, but like engaging with it. But it could be going and talking to someone that you want to learn from and that's kind of scary. It can be like I made it clear that it can be a variety of things, but doing something that ultimately allows you to progress. But doing at least one scary thing every week.
Yeah.
And then
That's
other
a
ones
great
have been
guideline.
sorry, yeah. Other ones have been more specific, like the month before it was climb ups or pull ups. You could choose because pull ups can be more accessible sometimes than doing climb ups. But that every time you went past a pull up bar, you had to do a set of pull ups and share it in the group. Or every time you went out training parkour, you had to do a set of climb ups and share it. Ideally, share it in the group or write a message in the group to say you did it. So yeah, things like that. Some are more like specific, like a climb up, and some are more flow, where like okay, it's going to look really different to different people. But when I'm creating the parkour challenges, I'm always thinking about like the broad different levels that people are at. So in the parkour program, in the female parkour program, I have a woman who's been training for 10 years and I have a woman who's been training for a month. So like how can I have to
Yeah.
create a challenge that can work for both of them. And I will get better at creating these challenges. It's actually what I'm excited about is also like in 12 months time I'll have created 12 different challenges and so on, and I will get better at creating them as well.
Yeah. That's really interesting because so I have not released it yet because I'm still building out the back end to make sure that people have a good experience. But I ran like a beta test of like a holistic parkour training program. So it's got 2 times a week, 2 to 3 training prompts like the ones that you talked about, and then 2 days a week of agility and weightlifting combined. So it's like kind of like a high-low situation. And the goal for that is to provide enough structure, like you said, for people to not overtrain, because this is a common thing that I had Alec Bunnis on the podcast months ago. If anybody has not listened to that episode, people tend to not listen to the strength and conditioning episodes as much as the parkour ones, which I totally get, but those ones are so informative, and it's like those are the ones that will actually help people with their weaknesses. And one thing that Bunnis and Matt McInnes Watson both brought up is when people who are passionate about a sport want to add in supplementary training, they're like, I'm going to take my normal parkour training schedule, and then I'm also going to do this weightlifting program or this sprint training program, and I'm just going to stack both on top of each other. And then they just destroy themselves, or they don't follow either of them well, and they cherry pick from the strength and conditioning, and they cherry pick like what they want to do in their training, and they're like not doing as much parkour. They're doing pretty bad S&C that's like not actually giving them a stimulus that's gonna do anything for them long term. And then they're like, oh, I guess this doesn't work for me. But what is amazing about coaching parkour is you do get so good at scaling, and it is amazing because it is so scalable, because it is so self-guided and giving people constraints. One of the exercises I was just out filming, I don't know if you know Julius Porter, but he's been, as I can't do some of the demo videos, we've been filming them, he's been helping me film. And one was just filming some like ambidextrous vaulting. And to your point of doing something scary, he is the only person to do the illegal Pete's descent, which is like one of the most famous ones in Colorado, from the very, very top. It's like 6 stories. It's a descent that like Phil Doyle has looked at, Alex Schauer, like Nick Ortiz, Dylan Baker, all these amazing athletes. Nobody did it except him. He was genuinely scared of doing reverse vault on the opposite side. And he was like, I've never done this, right? So there's a lot of scalability where you can, even for people who are incredibly advanced and skilled athletes, you can, with the right structure, find ways to create that novelty or that stimulus when you have the right guidance. And I think that's a really powerful thing about online parkour programming or in-person coaching is I would not, and he probably would not have thought that would be a good stimulus until we were in that sort of like coaching situation or relationship. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can actually work on something that's genuinely hard, that is giving my brain that novelty, the new movement pattern, the challenge, and that's going to be applicable to my line building and parkour. Like there's plenty of situations where you have to be able to reverse vault or lazy vault or step vault, whatever kind of vault transition on your opposite side in a certain environment. And having somebody just tell you like, hey, you should do that is so awesome. And that can be helpful whether you're 10 or 15 year veteran or you're in month 1.
I mean, I completely agree with what you were saying earlier, a few sentences ago, about like overtraining or stacking. You know, you've got your parkour volume and then stacking a strength and conditioning program on top and thinking that's got to make me a better athlete, and not
I'll do triphasic on top of training parkour for SPL.
Stacking and too much volume, absolutely. And I think maybe it's not just parkour athletes, but parkour athletes tend to do like heaps of volume and then zero volume, and then heaps of volume and then zero volume. And I see it in like my friends and who I train with in London, and it's like I'd seen it in the years leading up to coaching online, and then like launching the female parkour program again, overtraining came up very quickly. One of the girls was training every day, and she was like, guys, how many days are you training? Because I'm really tired. And it turned out she was training every day. And I swear she thought that everyone was training every day, because every day there'd be new videos in the chat, but they're all different women, obviously. But in her head, they were like the same woman, or, you know, she didn't really think about it, but she was training every day. And so overtraining is a big one. And then also, as you were talking, I was thinking the mental load that comes with as you get older and you have more responsibilities. I actually don't think our bodies necessarily have slowed down that much yet. I'm 31, and I think we're a similar age, but it's actually the mental load of everything else. I mean, you have a daughter and a wife and a job, For me, it's like working long hours on the business and then going out and training. Like, I'm not out training all day like some of the younger people. Just, family stuff, and the volume of stress is higher, and the same for the people we coach as well. And so yeah, that's another consideration. And I think one of the key things in the female parkour program is allowing those conversations to happen. I think one of the most valuable things I give is, yes, the workouts and the parkour challenges, but also a space to have these conversations. And I think whilst I absolutely know there are some amazing male coaches out there where you can have these conversations with, and I think we're blessed in our sport to have some amazing male coaches, but for these women, it is nice to have a space where we can talk openly as a group of women about things like the changes some of them are experiencing with the start of the menopause, or energy fluctuations around your menstrual cycle, or just stress and overtraining, and all those topics that men have those conversations as well. But I've realized how valuable...
We don't have those conversations. Most of the men are just slamming some Zen and then going after it. No, that's not true, thankfully. But some of them are, yeah.
But I realized, again, it was a realization of, wow, this group chat is actually... It's a WhatsApp group chat, and sometimes I haven't said anything all day, and I just look and they've had whole conversations, and I'm so happy that they're supporting each other. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing that you've created the community, because I think that's what people are looking for a lot of times in coaching, and what helps people stick with parkour. I think, to your point of the psychological load, that's another aspect of the psychological, and there's also huge like psychological neuromuscular load and adaptation that happens with parkour training, because people underestimate how physically fatiguing it is for your nervous system and your brain to be in a situation where you were breaking a jump for 2 hours and you're putting yourself in this like high cortisol fight or flight emotional state for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours. Your body the next day is going to need to have a low psychological challenge day, like that you cannot, maybe when you're 19 and you're not, like you said, you don't have the other kind of life situations happening. I'm sorry to say this, anybody who's in high school or college, if you are listening to this, it is as easy as it gets currently for you. It does not get easier. So if you're struggling now, that's totally valid. Unfortunately for many of us, unless you're independently wealthy and you graduate and then you're just set and you don't have to work, it will continue to become more difficult socially and psychologically. It's great because it makes you, I think, stronger and better at managing all of those stressors. But yeah, the factors that go on outside of your life and that happen inside your life, managing those on your own can be really difficult. And having a community of people that can support you on the days that are really intense, and then also give you what you're maybe wanting, that connection on a rest day or on a day where you're not going as hard, but you want to engage with friends and see people progressing, is so valuable.
Yeah, a lot of women in the program don't have community. So like the women in Croatia, the women in Hawaii, the women in India, they felt quite isolated. So, and actually even the one in Australia, like all of those women, some of them were already training a lot, some a little, but they all lacked, even if they were training a lot, they lacked community. They had very little community, and if they had any, it might be a 2-hour drive for them, and they were mostly guys. So for them, it really was like sharing. Like for me, finding fem gaps and how amazing that's been. Okay, it's in person, it's obviously like brilliant, but if you don't have that, then having something online can be just as good. And
so let's the
second thing I was going to say, just when I was listening to you talking about how it doesn't get better than when you're 19, but the second thing I would say is to a young listener listening to this as well, is like, I also love parkour more and more each year, and it's more and more fun. So like, it's not that it's downhill and we're like begrudgingly still doing parkour. Like, it is like so much fun, and I'm still getting better every year. Things have changed, and a lot of things change from when you're 19 to 31, but I still have so much fun. I've made a best friend out of Megan, she's just turned 20, and we trained together. We were training together on Saturday, and I had a moment where we're actually doing a video project together. So we were filming for our video project, and I was filming her, and she was quite far away, and I just had the thought, and I was like, she's gonna find this so cringe, but I was stood there filming, and I was like, I just feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and I just feel when we train together, we're just really peaceful. We push ourselves, we break chat. That's all we do is like break jumps and push ourselves, and we're really good at pushing each other. Like she pushes me and I push her. Even though we work on completely different challenges, like the challenge she did, I didn't do it, but I could keep her to not give up on it and stay with it and reassure her that she absolutely had it and could do it, and she did do it. But then likewise she pushes me. But there's a certain calmness, and I think there's been a lot of duos in parkour, and I actually do think it's a thing, or it's really great when you find someone that you can work with really well. And yeah, I found that at 31 with the most unlikely person I never thought I'd be training with. So yeah, I love parkour more and more with every year.
That's amazing and incredibly wholesome. That was beautiful. Also, I will say, I guess to be fair to the teenagers out there, you're on a hormonal roller coaster for your teens through your early 20s. If you're a dude, you don't believe that you are, but all the way into your mid 20s, you're like, I have my shit figured out. You do not. Your brain is definitely still adapting and developing and growing. So I feel like while there's less environmental load, your perceived psychological load is super valid. You definitely develop more capacity as you get older to deal with those stressors as you experience more of those stressors. Like if I had a kid when I was 19, I would have been completely incapable because I had not developed the capacity to deal with that. And so as you, yeah, that's a thing that there are plenty of young kids that I get to train with and occasionally get to work with or coach. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard for sure. And that's not to downplay it. It's definitely, things get easier for you to deal with. Things get harder or things stack that you have to experience. So it's kind of an interesting fluctuation. But I do want to talk about you and Megan. So you have a podcast. It's very fun. I have not listened to all of the episodes, but I've listened to a good chunk. And I really, really liked the FAQ series, or not FAQ, but the Q&A series that you did, where you were talking about, women in the community. And I think it ended up also touching on a lot of things, like you said, about fem gaps. What are some of the things that consistently come up in the podcast? And what do you feel like you've learned through hashing out these conversations with Megan in that format?
Yeah. So breaking barriers, I'm trying to think even how it came about, but I think we felt like we were having really good conversations in real life with people, and a lot of it was spurring conversations between me and Megan. And I thought it'd be an interesting combination because she is so young, and she's pushing herself, and she's doing really well. She got to the finals at Project Underground at Skill. I'm really excited to see where her journey will be. And then on the flip side, there's me that has been in the sport for 15 plus years. So the conversation we were having, I was kind of like, it's really interesting because on lots of things we're similar, but on lots of things, we just have different experiences, and it's really hard to put yourself back into that mindset of a 19-year-old. So I can't do that in the authentic way that she does. So I think we thought that would be an interesting, and what better way to inspire other women to start. I think that's where it came from. Now I'm thinking, I haven't thought back to the early days for a while, but I think that's where it came from. Is I was like, Megan, this is the perfect way to inspire other women to start, because if it's a young Aunus from Copenhagen who's thinking about starting parkour, she'll relate a lot more to Megan than to me, talking about all my injuries and stuff like that. She'll relate a lot more to Megan, who's just a pocket rocket who's just been set off, and I don't know where she's going to end up, and I'm really excited to see it. But then you've got the 60-year-olds that come to my workshops, or mums. Yesterday I spoke to this mum who's just had a baby and wants to get back into parkour. They're going to relate a lot more to a 31-year-old like me. So I think when we realized that, we were like, basically, fuck it, we should do it. And wherever it goes, it goes. And for us, it's been really a good learning experience of learning to articulate things and speak. And also, the podcast doesn't have a specific direction. We were also let's see what comes up. I know we really want to do an episode on the menopause, because that's come up a few times inside the female parkour program. So we want to invite an expert on to talk about that. But at the moment, we've done a lot. There's been a lot of events. So we've done a lot of reviewing events. So we did an episode following Whipworth, the International Women's Parkour Weekend, where Megan did her first time coaching an international event, but also coaching adults, because Megan mostly coaches kids. So she was super nervous and she did so well. And I knew she would, but she did so well. So reflecting on that. And then we reflected on the FemGaps Jam that we ran. And but we have also done episodes where we were like, what do we want to know more about? Or what do we hear from people that they want to know more about? So we did one on how to fuel properly for a competition. And for us, it was really interesting to do the research, but we also felt it was relevant to the parkour community or to people like starting to interact. The podcast is aimed at both people
Big
new
ups
to
carbs
parkour.
for fueling for competition.
Say again,
Shout
big up
out.
carbs.
Big ups to the carbs out there. Yeah, shout out.
Basically that, which actually for a woman is really important to hear, because we're kind of brought up with this idea of like cut carbs.
Carbs
so we
are
really,
bad.
Yeah, so we really... But I think the podcast is aimed at everyone. It can be someone who's already training, and we hope it will bring value to people already training, but also as a way for people to come in and be like, oh, okay, I've just learned a load about parkour I didn't know. So yeah, it can be aimed at both. It can be aimed at parents as well, reassuring them of like what parkour is. And yeah, we're kind of letting whatever happens guide us, and as things come up and become relevant, we'll do an episode on them. Yeah.
I think it's so helpful to have, because there have been, I mean, Sydney Olsen has a podcast, which at the beginning I think was, it's Collecting Scars, was a little bit more parkour focused, and now it's kind of diversified. She has a lot of different guests on, but having female hosts who are just talking about parkour for a woman or a little girl who's getting into it. I mean, I think about all the time when Margot is older, if she decides that she wants to actually do parkour, other than the fact that she's growing up with a parkour setup in her yard and is my kid, and it will inevitably probably be learning how to do rail precisions at an early age. But if she decides she wants to pursue it, there's a difference between me having you on and you having a platform where you're inviting other women on and you're consistently like a voice every week or every couple weeks, you and Megan. And I think that's phenomenal. And I do think the age gap is underexplored. Like I really like having younger guests on. One of my favorite episodes that I did was with Denali Saruno. We were talking about competition because he's, I don't know exactly how old he is, early 20s. His perspective on what he values in the sport is so wildly different from mine. And
I listened.
It's great because they're like, I don't need to agree with you. I need to hear you talk about your perspective and understand it, because otherwise how am I gonna be able to connect relevantly with anybody who's not just in my niche of the sport? And to your point earlier, that kind of takes us back to like building those bridges when you're inviting that diversity of voices. 100%. And we say diversity, and a lot of times we, in parkour, I think we say subconsciously it's like it becomes very gendered, to use like that word. But I think diversity is also diversity of perspective, whether that's where you started training, what your personal approach to training is, your goals, your age, the generation that you grew up in, all of those things, like having all of those in this big tent and building connections between all those voices is so important.
And actually, to summarize the podcast, it's breaking barriers, parkour, and the three things I think it really is us having a chat, you hearing about me getting excited for Megan, or us working on a video project, like also coming into our sphere a bit. And that's a great way for someone like Margot, if she was older, to like listen and be like, oh, I like those two, and like I also want to do parkour, and they could be my friends maybe, like a bit of that. But then
100%.
also research, like we care, and we want things that we wanted to learn about, like how to feel for a competition. Like Megan had just gone through her weight loss journey, and suddenly we were like, okay, now this needs to stop, you can't lose any more weight. And now we've got Project Underground, so then we both sort of deep dived into like how to feel for a competition, and then we did an episode on it. And then the third one was bigging up things that are happening in the parkour space, so things like FemGaps Jam or Whipware or CPG or Project Underground, like events like that we've mainly bigged up ones we've been to, because we've been to quite a few. Went to Ladies in Leuven, and so we've talked about quite a few events. But it could also be, I think we've mentioned things like Gizmo was happening or stuff like that, even if we haven't been to it. So it's kind of those three things. And I think, the age gap, I think it's a strength. And the reason I felt it was because I could feel it with her. Like when we're hanging out, I'm like, something that I thought would be a barrier is actually a strength. Like, I get so much from hanging out with Megan. I really do. But she does too, because she's like, I don't know, we were at Ladies and Nerves, and she's like, Georgia, you know everyone. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I've just trained for 15 years. Like, I've met these people at events. But for her, it's like, for her first international event, she was like, this is so cool. I just like hang out, and then Georgia introduces me to everyone. And I didn't think of it like that, but I was like, sweet. But I instead feel like Megan is full of energy, so when we go out training, I can just feed off her. So like, we're both getting something from it. And the same I felt like on the podcast, that we both bring something different.
Yeah, I got to bring both of you on next time. I thought about that originally, and I was like, I'm going to bring Georgia on first because I wanted to also talk about what you're personally doing in addition to that. But I'd love to have you both back on at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's such a fun dynamic to listen to, and it's very cool to hear you talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you see at these events? So you just had Women's International Parkour Weekend, CPG Her, FemGaps, especially in Europe, the women's scene is really seems to be exploding, and especially the content coming out of it, not just at the elite level like the Hazals who have been making content for a long time, but sort of the base of the women's community. What's a trend that you see right now that you really, really love in women's parkour?
I guess, yeah, that I don't know, because a part of me is like more women are training. It still feels to me like very few women are training. Like, I feel like they're still quite small events. Like, FemGaps was 50 people, awesome, but they were all the people that you do see on Instagram that are training quite a lot. There was some beginners, but it was a lot. And that was what was cool, is that it was like a jam, and there was like international athletes coming to it, which was amazing. And as FemGaps, we loved seeing that and loved seeing the support from them. But then even something like CPG, you might have like 30 to 40 women, which is obviously great, but I still feel like it's really small. Because I was going to say, what are the trends I see is like friendships developing. I was holding hands. Sounds like I'm at every event, and I have been traveling a hell of a lot. But there's still more events I haven't been to.
You're allowed to go to every event. You're an online coach. You can do it from anywhere.
I actually can't. I want to go to more events. But I was out holding hands, and it was really cool to see like Aunus from Copenhagen and Megan McQueen's friendship. And
the height dynamic is phenomenal as well. It is my favorite part of their friendships. Like, Megan's 6 feet tall, and Agnes is like 5 feet, if that. It's amazing.
So without sharing personal details, but we had a real girls chat at one point where I was talking to Megan, just catching up because I hadn't seen her in actually a few years, and Aunus came over and was like, can I just chat to you both? And she just had a bit of a vent, and I just felt like, again, I think she'd come up to Megan. Obviously Megan's her friend, and like, but we were both there, and we were both obviously super supportive and helping her, but like, I was like, I'm so glad she has some girls to come and chat to. So the friendships is a theme that I'm seeing, of like, it's nice to see that women no longer are like, not that it was always like this, but sometimes it could be like, oh, there's that girl over there, do I go talk to her, do I not? It's nice to see a lot of friendships happening between women, and video projects like Lisa and Hazal working together on a project. Like, with all of these things, you know, me and Megan are working on a project. I hope it inspires other women to make projects. When we were at Holding Hands, they did a really beautiful film screening. What's his name that runs it?
Mikesh.
You know, hats off to him. He did a great job. He was sort of announcing everything throughout the day. Like, he was just on it and kind of MC the whole day. The film screening was beautiful. And this is no critique of Holding Hands, but there wasn't one single female project.
Yeah.
And that's not on them. That's because presumably they weren't submitted. So there's Camilla's in the making with Boston Commons, and in Pasta Moves there was like 4 sections, and 2 of them were Monica and Natalia. So like, it's not that there wasn't a single female face, but they were just small sections of the Pasta Move video. There wasn't a single female project, and I watched it and I thought, oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
And it's because we're not making them.
Yeah.
And we need to make them.
Yeah, that's always been a hard thing when the community is small, and this is something I don't think I understood until Christine and I started dating, but it extends through the video projects, through competition. I mean, the pressure that Christine felt, and she's been pretty vocal about this, so I don't feel bad bringing it up in the podcast, is she competed for probably 5 years longer than she wanted to, just because she did not want people to say, oh, well, women shouldn't be paid equally because look, another women's competition division wasn't full, or oh, there are only 4 of them that showed up, or whatever. Like, and I know there's a lot of women who've had that experience. Like, I've talked with Renee, like, who feel pressured to participate and create because they know that if they don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. And that's something that I talked about, that struggle with, even with EHOB for the disabled parkour community. You know, it's a ton of pressure when you are a member of a minority in the community, whether that's like creating a video, competing. It's tough for sure.
Yeah. And I guess that's a good point, because it's not about them doing more, but it's about nurturing the like grassroots and like bringing people
building
up
that base of those, and those events like FemGaps. I mean, I'm really happy that you talked about friendships as well, because I also think our community has, as we've aged, we've matured. I think we still have a problem with this, but for a long time, I think there was kind of a pretty unhealthy subconscious comparison problem that we had with both men and women, but I think it affected women much more because there were so few of them, where it's constant, like at every jam, it's constantly, who do you think is going to do this first? Is it going to be Tim Champion or Daryl Stingley? Like, there's the measuring and the like, is this person better at this, or is this person better? Does Toby Seeger have a bigger Kong than Verke? But when it's women and there's only 4 women in the international community at the same level, it becomes, I think there was a tendency to make it very like pitting them against each other in this kind of skill development situation. And I don't think anybody did it in a way to be negative or to discourage, you know, friendships and relationships from developing. But I've talked with quite a few women who experienced that early on, that felt like they were set up to have to compete against the small handful of other women in their either local or international community for attention, because I'm the woman who's best at Webster's. I'm the woman who has the best Kong Prix. And that just affects you so much more proportionally when there are only a handful of athletes. It's like the spotlight is so magnified. And I think I think the community simultaneously calmed down a little bit about that as the men have grown up and matured. I think that we still have a problem with it, but it's calmed a little bit, and as the women's community has grown.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not intentionally harmful. It's not like they're trying to be harmful. But speaking with, again, some of the younger athletes, like they have, and because like you say, some of the men have matured, but there is still young men joining the sport. And one young athlete was saying to me, oh, they're always saying to me like, you got to look out for Miranda because she's gonna be better than you. Or again, she was like, someone said to her, oh, you know, Rachel's been chatting shit about you. And it wasn't true, but it was just like that kind of trying to create rivalries. And it's playful. And obviously it's even, she knows it's playful. But I think when it's happening to her, like in every conversation about competition, it's like, like actually when I compete, I have fun with Miranda. Like, why? This isn't a me versus her. Apart from the fact that like physically we're so different, you know, like Miranda is going to be better at certain things and I'll be better at others. So I think trying not to pit women against one another is a good thing. But I think also women suffer with the sort of comparison is the thief of joy a lot at all levels. Me and Isabel talk about it a lot, of like just checking ourselves whenever we feel like just because one person does the Grand Prix and the other doesn't, it doesn't mean that you're shit and I'm good, or vice versa. And how many times we see guys where like one guy gets the challenge, the others don't. It's not like the rest of them are like, oh, I must be shit because maybe, you know, I don't know, it's a dive roll and they're just like, I'm not so as good at dive rolls. That's just a fact. It's fine. Whatever. Moving on. Yeah. I'm confident in what I am good at. And I was saying to Isabel the other day, like we should be really confident in what we're good at. Doesn't mean you can't expand that, but like just because you can't do a specific challenge doesn't mean you're not good. And I think 100%. I don't know if it's a women only thing. I don't know, but
no, I think men obviously also, I mean not obviously, and a lot of dudes will tune out when they hear these things because they're like, well, yeah, like guys compare each other all the time. Who's got a bigger, is Tim Champion or Orlando or Daryl? Who's got a bigger 180? I think the problem that a lot of younger men, myself included when I was younger, before I dated and then was married to a female parkour athlete and got to see a little bit behind the curtain, is that when your pool of potential friends is so big, it doesn't hurt to have those conversations and those competitions, because even if you take that too seriously, you have 100 other people at your level that you can build a relationship with that's constructive and that isn't centered around these kind of like friendly competitive or not friendly competitive dynamics. And when your pool of potential people at your level is like 8, it is very challenging when 5 of them have been set up as your direct rival by the community, even if it's subconscious. And I do think that, to your point again, it's good to be like, that's not like people are doing this in a negative way. It can be playful. But I think that there are like people internalize things subconsciously in their narratives. And to your point, I think that culturally there are broader dynamics at play that women experience that pit women against each other for either male attention or praise or whatever, that they're already dealing with on a broad social level, and then magnifying that in the context of this sport that is difficulty enough for them. It's a small community. Everything is then exponentialized. Something that I wanted to bring up, because your point of friendship was, I really enjoyed hearing that. You know, I'm like, I hope that everybody can have an experience of where comparison is not the thief of joy, but it is a motivating factor. And instead of saying, you know, oh God, Miranda's just like so tall and so good at wall runs because she's fucking jacked. It's like, I'm going to go train wall runs with Miranda and we're going to have fun working this together. And I am going to be worse at it than her. And I'm going to do it in a space that's safe, because people are not saying, why is that girl even trying wall runs? Doesn't she know that's Miranda's thing? And same thing for men. You know, I'm going to go and work with Jared Nahulu on laches, even though Jared is infinitely better at laches than me, because I want to learn from him and improve. And luckily for me as a man, there's much less of a highlight on the fact that Jared is incredibly good. And so I don't feel that same level of like, I shouldn't even touch this.
Yeah, definitely. I think as women, we're getting better at just talking openly about these things and processing them and being like, yeah, no, actually, you can help me with, like, Isabel's really good at dive kongs, so she can help me with that. I'm really good at
She's
like,
really
rails,
good at dive kongs.
rails and landing on rails and precisions and things like that. And so we can share, and it doesn't have to be, and it is companionship. It's also just nice. Like, me and her go out quite regularly, a lot, like just us two in London, just because maybe people aren't free or whatever. Or she's helped me a lot with Strength with G, actually, with my company. She's my like camera person often.
Nice.
She comes out and I pay her for that. Like, that's actually a job. And she comes out, but I always say to her, we get to spend a day together and we get to film parkour content, but it's great. We get to hang out, but it's work. Yeah. So yeah, that's been actually a big joy of like creating an online coaching business, which is, it's still, you know, it's not even been 2 years, and I want it to grow a lot more. I have a lot more ambitions for Strength with G. Yeah, it will continue to grow. But one of the joys has been being able to use my friends and pay them for stuff, which I hope to be able to pay them even more in the future. But like, Isabel does some of the camera work. David did a photo shoot. David Witchell was the photographer for a photo shoot for my clients. For those of them that like wanted to, they could come and do like both headshots and like kind of fitnessy photos. I'm planning to do a women's only parkour shoot in the summer, and Dodds has said yes, and Witchell has said yes. So I want both of them in the same space, because Dodds, I feel like his photography is very street style, very different. David will do a bit more the kind of commercial. And because I plan to have like 10 to 15 women at a spot doing parkour, there's enough women that like, if Dodds is shooting over here and David can be doing something else, like there's actually enough people to have 2 photographers. And that's just
do a calendar. Just do a badass women's parkour calendar.
Yes.
Just everybody looking jacked, hitting sick dive kongs.
Yeah, all on like IMAX or
yeah, that would be sick. I would absolutely buy that. Oh my gosh,
that'd be cool. I haven't fleshed it out yet. Like, first I was like, would you guys even do it? And they were like, yeah, and gave me their quotes, and I was like, sick. But I'm paying for it at a loss, but I don't care. Like, it's it's also marketing. Like, it's not a loss really, but it's images that first of all I want to use for Strength with G, but also Parkour UK, the governing body, has said they'll buy some, and obviously with the permission of the women in those photos. But that's a great thing that they can be used to, so there's no excuse. Like, there is photos of women. There just isn't many images of women doing parkour, showcasing both the diversity of our skills and the kind of skills that women gravitate towards, but also just showing some, like you say, some badass women training. So it's just photography for that one. And but I hope I can help facilitate and organize more things like that. And it feels like that's one thing. 'Cause, yeah, there is a lot of things maybe that were slightly negative that I was saying earlier, but there is also a lot of momentum. I think I never saw this coming, but I do think that Strength with G has helped me to have purpose, and some momentum is happening. There's also FemGaps, which isn't the same thing. So FemGaps was set up by Isabel with then the rest of us women in London. They kind of happened at the same time, and they're slightly different things, but there's sort of a certain momentum that I think is coming from that. And it's not just around coaching parkour, it's actually more around modeling and role modeling that women can do parkour. And you can be, pushing yourself. Like for us at FemGaps, it's like one of the things is do it scared. One of our mottos is like do it scared, and it's about pushing ourselves and actually, yes, we can do hard jumps, and yes, we can do scary, roof gaps, and we want to, and that's okay.
God, I love that. I love that phrase. Can you make a do it scared FemGaps t-shirt? Like I just want like a Nike style, like on the chest, do it scared.
Well, we have one. It's not Nike style, but we have one. Yeah, let me get it.
That's sick. No, I think that is a great phrase for parkour athletes, but specifically for women in parkour. I feel like that.
The front of the t-shirt is just FemGaps.
Okay.
And then on the back, you've got a drawing. What can you see? And then on her shoe.
Oh, sick. Yep.
It says do it scared.
Hell yeah.
That's our first t-shirt. But yeah.
That's sick. That's so sick.
Yeah. And the video projects we made were all like, the YouTube edits we've done too, were all about like doing stuff that really pushed us and scared us. Because that's fun. It is fun. And we enjoy doing that too. We wanted to show that online, and then, but also at the same time, I think Strength with G has been instead a place for like, whatever your age, whatever your level, you can do parkour and you can start. And one thing that's come up this week actually is about mums, and I want to push a certain hashtag, which is hashtag parkour mama, like MAMA, because a few women were saying to me like their mums, and they're like, I don't know many women that have come back. And I do think having a child for a lot of women has been the reason they stopped. And so there are some women that have come back to parkour, like Posey and like the woman I was speaking to yesterday, who's asked me to coach her to get back to parkour. And there are examples of that, like Paula Finn in Australia, who has 3 kids, but they're not connected. And I think the hashtag parkour over 40 has worked so well. So I kind of want a hashtag like that, where you could click on it and find a load of mums who are training, and either meet up with them, connect with them, or just know that you can do this, like that you can have a child or 2 children. Obviously, there's a lot of rehab to do, but then come back to it. And I guess I realized
it'll make Christine post some training, because she's still training. She's actually probably stronger now than she's been ever. She's doing like hella CrossFit, and it's just getting jacked, but also still training. She's just like she's like, I don't train enough to feel excited about my clips, but is still like, she could roll up at a jam and kill it at any point.
I was gonna say, sometimes what you're doing, like you take for, not that she has to post, but sometimes it's like, actually even the simple things you're doing are probably quite impressive and inspiring. I think just having a hashtag that women can click on, and I guess what I've realized in the last few years is just how important modeling is. And I don't mean like catwalk modeling. I mean just like modeling certain I don't mean that, but like modeling behaviors and modeling like role modeling, I guess, is it's like for women to see that, oh, that person kind of looks like me, and she's sick at parkour, great, maybe I could get there. And storytelling. The second thing I'd say is important is storytelling, and I'm trying to do more of it, of like telling a story of how I went from this to this, so that people realize that I am not too dissimilar to how you are right now. And so if I can do this, this, and this over the course of maybe 4 years, I'm not saying it's a short journey, but you can as well. And the 4 years are going to pass anyway, so if you want, you can train, and in 4 years time you can be doing that, IMAX gap you want to do, or whatever it is you want to do. And it's not just about individual jumps either, but you can be enjoying parkour and feeling really good in your abilities, and you absolutely can. So I think those 2 things are really important: role modeling and storytelling.
Absolutely. And having pop-ups that say find parkour moms in your area, but only targeted to people that have the hashtag parkour mama in their content. I do want to ask you the last question, which I ask everybody. If you had to recommend one piece of media book, podcast,
Mhm.
film, whatever, what would it be?
Yep, I got excited there because for a moment I thought I'd forgotten. But no, I did think about this question and I wasn't sure what to say. And then, can I recommend two music
Go
artists?
for it. Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so first one has to be a shout out to my sister who's just released her first EP, her first single. She's called Fison Music, Fison. And the song is Daughter of a Good Man, which is on Spotify and lots of other platforms, or you can find her on Instagram. So yeah, just shout out. She's been working on it. I mean, arguably for a long time, but especially with a producer for the last sort of 6 months, and then they released it. So super exciting as a big sister, and it's a great song. And then the second shout I wanted to do was to Odd Signals, which is Ollie Dale from Brighton. He's a parkour athlete, and he was performing at Oslo Movement Gathering this weekend, just gone. He raps, and I've known Ollie for a while now, and I had no idea until he started posting online that he was so good.
Sick.
And I'm yet to see him live. I'm gutted I missed him in Oslo. He's performing at Street Media Social, which is sort of 17th of July in London. So I hope to see him there. He's also performing at the Scruffy Jam, which is happening, but it's not happening in the UK. It's happening somewhere else. Maybe at Deer Hall.
Oh wow.
So he's performing there, and I think he performs quite a lot in Brighton. So I'm moving down to Brighton in July, so I hope to see him perform there. But Odd Signals on Instagram, Ollie Dale. I'm really impressed. It's actually really good, and I just wasn't, when you know someone just as a parkour person and like a cameraman, he used to like take pictures and videos, but that was it, and I just didn't expect it. And then when I saw his first reel, I was like, what? This is really good.
Heck yeah.
So it was a good surprise. Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, Georgia, thank you so much for coming on. It's been super fun. And yeah, we'll have to hit it again and get Megan on, and we
Yeah,
can dig
absolutely.
into even more stuff in the future.
Thank you for having me, Max.
All right, y'all. That was Georgia. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I definitely got a ton out of this one. I think the concept of building bridges is so important. Our community is not big, and it's so easy to silo ourselves because we're so passionate about what we do and just associate with our little niche of the community. But the fact is, like, especially here in the US, parkour is so small that the more connections that we can make, the more that we can find out what people are drawn to from the Yamakaze's approach, or from Parkour Generation's approach, or from, Hub Freerun's approach and Hub Parkour's approach in Boston. I can't believe I just called them Hub Freerun. I'm so sorry, Dylan. But the more that we can find out what people like about all these different approaches, whether it's sport parkour or the spirit of the Yamakaze's training and things that maybe to us seem polar opposites, I think the more that we can create an integrated approach to parkour and meet people where they're at. And that's something I really respect about Georgia with her content and her coaching. She seems really, really fantastic at identifying what people love, what they really want to get out of training, and then just meeting them where they're at and delivering what they want, not delivering what she wants, and then just hoping that they somehow find a way to digest it. I think that's a lesson that we all, whether we're content creators or coaches or just athletes that are sharing parkour with people that we love because we love the sport, I think it's a lesson that we could all learn from. So I will see y'all next week. Thanks as always for listening. I appreciate you and have a great day.